Hey, very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to day 3 of Something Strange Festival. Well, I'm the familiar face that you may recognize. My name is Eugene Tay, and today with me I have Dr. Kuan Yu taking the hot seat, leading in a discussion for this very brand new episode called Strange World. Uh, and with us this evening or this morning, depending on where you are in the world, we have two speakers, Jeffrey and Roedy. And also, we have pre-recorded interview with ISIS. And all these names and all these people hail from different parts of the world and with different spiritual practices and background. And today, this entire strange world series or vertical that we have in the Something Strange Festival is to talk about the different traditions, the different rituals, the intangible heritage around the world, so that it gives audience like you guys a glimpse into things that are not quite mainstream, and that's why we call it esoteric traditions here. And now inviting with me to have a quick chat about what is going on, because he's the man behind this series and he has planned all this out. Let's hear from Dr. Kuan Yu, the man himself.
Morning, everyone. Morning, Eugene. Yeah, yes. We have to cater for some of the speakers who are coming from the US. So, yeah, this is what I feel to be the perfect timing. Yeah, Mhm. Not that much this time. Yeah, next time I'll incorporate that. I see. Thanks for the question, Eugene. So, it's that pilgrimage was 1.5 years in the making. There were a lot of higher guidance for the trip, and the journey was
Oh,
fruitful,
sorry.
exciting.
Hold on.
Yeah,
Everyone's saying no sound, no sound from me.
sound
Okay.
okay.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, once again, let me take this from the top, not from the top, but from the time I introduced Dr. Kuan Yu, and thank you so much for joining us very early on in this stream. I know it's 9 a.m., it's 10 a.m. It's not the same as what you guys have been used to tuning in at 10 p.m. on a Friday. But once again, let me introduce Dr. Kuan Yu. Dr. Kuan Yu is the brains behind this vertical called Strange World, and he is a man of science. He's a man of science as well as he has deep interest in esoteric. He does things like he reads things on acupuncture, energy flow. So he mixes both the academic part as well as the esoteric traditions. And it's a very interesting crossover. And I felt he was the best person to be the host for this show. Dr. Kuan Yu also recently came back from Egypt for a 2 weeks long pilgrimage. And I think he experienced some really cool stuff there. And Dr. KY, why don't you just give us a brief walkthrough of what happened?
Okay. Thank you for the very kind introduction, Eugene. And yes, hi everyone. Good morning and good afternoon, good evening from wherever you are. Yes. So as Eugene mentioned, I recently came back from a pilgrimage, and I think that's like the I've done like 3 to 4 different pilgrimages of the physical or of the spirit, and this is like the icing on the cake, the grand sort of finale. But I think there's more to come. But I would say that I received quite a lot of epiphanies and activations
Mm.
where we went through um, death, resurrection, rebirth, and initiation. And right now, I think the vibratory field is a bit different for me.
Mm.
And I'm really honored and glad to be able to do this with Eugene to host this festival. This festival is meant to increase the understanding of the esoteric, the intangible heritage that we have. And today we have with us international panel of speakers so that we can build bridges across the hemispheres, across the nations, increase the understanding and fostering cooperation, collaboration, and healing for the world. Yeah.
I love the way you said it. It sounds so official, like officious, like. No, I cannot run it the same way you do. And I've always been a big fan of your confessions in your interview when I speak with you. It just sounds so proper, and I love it. Also, to give you guys a bit of just a bit of warning. One of our guests is from Indonesia. He says there was just a huge thunderstorm where he's from, so connection may be a little bit wonky. So do forgive us if he drops in and out. Okay. Thank you to Alsatian for your donation as well, and Ix. Congrats, Eugene, and all supernatural activists. Let's open the world to wider scope of awareness. Thank you, thank you. That's really what we are here for. Okay, Kuan Yu, let's take the show on the road. Introducing your guest. Take it away from here.
Thank you, Eugene. Okay. Once again, good morning, everyone. For those who are just joining in, we have a lineup of speakers today. We'll be beginning off with Roedy, representing the traditions from Indonesia. Thereafter, we'll showcase Marza Mila, who represents the North American tradition. Next, we have our next live speaker, Jeffrey, representing, I would say, global shamanism. And thereafter, we have Isis, who's going to share with us a little glimpse into the Egyptian tradition. Thereafter, we follow that up with a panel discussion and audience Q&A. And without further ado, let's get Roedy with us, and let's put our hands together for Roedy, representing the Indonesian traditions.
Okay,
Morning, Roedy.
shall I start? Okay.
Yes.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for hosting me, Eugene and Dr. Jeffrey.
Yes,
okay,
we can hear you.
Okay, everyone can hear me.
Yep.
My name is Roedy Wiranatakusumah. I'm a native of Sunda, Indonesia. Sunda is one of the ethnic group of people. I born and raised here in my hometown because our family is the founding father of Bandung. I like to share my information, knowledge, and presentation here in this international opportunity. I'm very honored to be invited, and I hope that what I'm going to share will enrich the knowledge for everyone who are here. Because once we enrich our knowledge, we feel that the whole world will be together with us, because knowledge is a road, is a path for us to connect the human being. Okay,
Absolutely.
I would start with the title of my presentation is Genetic Resources, Traditional Knowledge, and Folklore. What we believe as a human being, we have genetic resources. It will come from human being, plants, anything that is alive in this universe. Can be plants, animals, we as a humans, or anything indicate the genetic resources. Traditional knowledge, of course, although we live in the 21st century with the high techs, but the traditional knowledge is the foundations of the human race. And the F would be folklore. So this is the new regime of the intellectual property right. Because when we talk about intellectual right, which means every living thing has a intellectual right, to think, to practice, to preserve whatever they wish to preserve it, since the evolution of human being. Why I like to touch this? Because it's been quite an interesting. It become a world issue. That's why the organizations set up by the UN, we call it World World Intellectual Property Organizations. We call it WIPO. So if you're a practitioner for intangible things or tangibles, anything that you do, it would relate to the new regime of GRTKF, genetic resources, traditional knowledge, and folklore. Allow me to more focus on the traditional knowledge and also folklore. In this matter, I would like to talk about. If you can show me the picture. Okay. So the first picture, there's like a temple. Is it a temple actually? As a matter of fact, that's the oldest uh, temple of Tarumanagara in Sundaland. If you see the map, and then there's a writer also about the Sundaland, you can refer on Google. That's the oldest temple in Sundaland. We call it Tarumanagara. On the right hand side, there's a stone. There's the old writing alphabetical of our people 1,000 years ago. Below is the on the left hand side. There's the sort of like the general of the monarchy of the kingdom back then. The right hand side is my great grandpa because he was the considered as the the chief associations of the Sultan of Nusantara.
Thank
So
you, Roedy. Roedy, you just mentioned it's the oldest temple. Can you give us like when was it built?
it was I have to open my reference.
Okay,
Okay,
no
it's
worries.
called Taruman Nagara. I can share it.
No worries, no worries. Yeah,
Okay,
I just
so, so
wonder like how many thousand
yeah,
years ago.
yeah. So it's and then if we can, if I can share about the traditional knowledge, what is the traditional knowledge? Is the intellectual or the background of people when they produce or they create something. So there is a definition of what is traditional knowledge. If you can show some people about the meaning of traditional knowledge, um, we all tied out to our traditional knowledge and how we practice it as a people around the globe. That's why the word traditional knowledge is recognized by worldwide organization or the center of organization world WIPO, because we need to protect to preserve our traditional knowledge. No matter what, we are still living with our traditional knowledge. Uh, if you mention about tangible and intangible, it can be mantra, it can be holistic way of healing the people. You can have knowledge of how the remedy come from the recipe from the earth, from the specific area that we our people produce, what we call it the engineers geography, and we still need to preserve that the traditional knowledge, and of course cannot be apart from the folklore. Uh, and this moment, uh, the, one of the traditional knowledge that has been produced based on their competency or the skill of our people, prehistoric, we call it Kujang. Can you please show me the picture of Kujang?
Um, let's see.
There's a picture of Kujang there.
Is it this
That's
one?
it. That's it. This one. Yeah, that one. So this is because our traditional knowledge, people can produce many things. So back to the era of prehistoric time, this sacred island was produced, and then until today, we still couldn't figure out how to do it. Although we found the fact prehistoric years ago, 1,000 years ago, these sacred islands, sacred iron are still collected by people, but they cannot duplicate. It's made of the iron sand and some um, material they compiled together, so it becomes a sacred islands. It looks like a weapon, but it's not a weapon. It's a tools, something that we use as our symbols for the Sunda people, and also we would consider as the intangible cultural heritage. People do a lot of research. They can use for special ceremony. They can use it for the energy purposes, healing, royal status. So it depends on what kind of kujang that you have. So this is basically come from the traditional knowledge. If you can show me another picture of kujang. Okay, this is how. Kujang is explained. So if you see the let me get my PowerPoint bigger here. Okay, this is the anatomy of Kujang that has mystical values, energy, power, the status symbol that what people still keep it. On the top side, we call it papatuk, which means like when you see the bird, it's just like a part of your mouth. And the back side, we call it eye.
Mata.
And this one here, eye. And this is your back, the backbone. Okay. And this is your foundation over here. Okay. I'm going to show you the very, very old Kujang. Can you close up to me, please?
Oh, okay. Eugene will be working his magic.
This is the ancients. Can you close it up for me? Can you see it? So we as a human race, whatever your background is, if we preserve our traditional knowledge, human can produce many things based on your geographical um, what do you call it, where you resided, right? So the components of this iron sand metallurgy, at least 4 or 5 raw material they combine together. They found it prehistoric era, and there was a what do you call it, molding system. But until today, we cannot find out how we can reproduce this. Well, if you can use the fake one, of course, a lot of machinery can do it, and then it is kind of sacred in a way because people would have to you know honor, and then I will have to put a special oil so it will be preserved. Uh, this is another kujang here. Can you see it, everyone? So is it clear? Okay, thank you. So if you put your finger like this, it's like a kujang, right? Horizontal and vertical. You see that? The horizontally that you deal the life in the world, dealing with people, environments, and vertical and horizontal is when you go to the supreme being, to God. Okay, you go up. Okay, it's symbolizing like this. Kujang also means that you are very firm in your belief and determinations. Okay, so I'm gonna put them away. Okay, this how, if you know the GRTKF would protect us as well from any commercializations. For instance, if you have something that belong to your community, it should be protected because the benefit should be from for the people to the people. Uh, I'm not saying that you cannot commercialize it. I'm not talking about kujang because kujang you cannot really commercialize it, but the kujang come from the area where people can collect iron sand and other sources that you can use to produce something, or the area within the geography area that you can produce or something pharmaceutical, foods, cosmetics, herbal, traditional medications, healing systems, and other things. Before I close it, we I have a friend, he's a professor. His PhD degree research in Kujang, about 800 pages. We try to translate to English so it become international literature because it has a lot of philosophy. People use it for mantra or anything that we can utilize it in terms of intangible and tangible knowledge or values. It's very symbolic thing for us, and then so we like to share it to the people of the world. There are uh, many things that we can do together based on the uh, traditional knowledge in this topic. So I hope my short presentation will give you some enlightenments.
Yeah, Roedy, if I may have a quick question, is this similar to the curries, or is like two separate?
Yeah. Thank you for your question. Okay, Keris is and Kujang are very ancient.
Mhm.
Keris you might find from Sumatra all the way to Papua, but Kujang specifically from the Sunda,
Mhm.
from the West Java,
I see.
the largest ethnic people in the world. I mean, sorry, in Indonesia. Sorry, this is only Kujang. But Keris, you can find it in Malaysia. You can find it in Singapore, Brunei. Mostly in Southeast Asian nation, they would have some kind of Keris. But Kujang specifically came from the Sunda people. If you can answer that. So it can be the same age. It can be older a bit. So I'm thinking of submitting it to UNESCO as the World Intangible Cultural Heritage.
Mhm.
So it'll be good things that people can or the world body can recognize this. A lot of things that need to be preserved. Even in the new regime of GRTKF, that mantra right now can be registered as your intellectual property.
Mhm.
Mantra, word of wisdom, uh, cultural, so verbals, prayers, right? That uh, can be belong to community or individually, because the word are very powerful as we believe. So that's why I'm very happy that in the old days, when you wanna remain young, anti-aging, the word itself would help you, because you believe in your word, and then can be registered as your intellectual property. So we working on it on top of other things. So as a matter of fact, before I did a presentation last night, we talking about what my mom mantra to remain young because she's turning 88, and then she still can, you know, ride the motorcycles. Someone can take her to the market, something, and then, so because she said, "Why use mantra?" So anyway, so of course, when you open the kujang, and then you should say some short prayers, and then honoring the thing that you hold. All right. So that would be my presentations. I hope everyone would get some extra knowledge about what I have shared with you people. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Roedy. Thank you, Roedy, for sharing your wisdom. I'm sure the audience have some questions or some comments about this, but we'll leave it over to the panel discussion and audience Q&A. Right now, Eugene, if you're ready, let's bring up our second speaker. Can't be with us live today because she's conducting a ceremony, but we'll be having Marza Mila. Marza Mila is a clinical herbalist, registered hypnotherapist, energy medicine practitioner, ceremonialist, medicine woman, as well as an archaeologist. She's from the Ojibwe heritage from Leech Lake Reservation, and she also has Scottish descent from the Johnston clan. She is actually educated as a clinical nurse, so she is both allopathic as well as have her foot in alternative medicine and archaeology. She specializes as a medical intuitive and empath, herbalist, healer, and medicine woman. She is clairvoyant and she uses her skills for life coaching, intuitive readings, and conducting medicine ways such as Sweat Lodge and Vision Quest Guide. Okay, just a little bit more. She specializes in vibrational and biodynamic medicine, biofield tuning, hypnotherapy, plant spirit medicine, vibrational somatics, and well-crafted herbal medicines. Let's hear from her. She'll be talking about the sweat lodge as well as the medicine wheel.
Okay. Yeah, good day, Marza. Again, hello. We'd like to introduce yourself and also the tradition that you represent.
Okay, my name is Marza Millar. I am Scottish and Native American. I have been walking a Native American path for my entire life. I will be 69 on Saturday. So for 69 years, they've been, thank you. It's just been a walk. I'm carrying the traditions of my father. And that is, instead of walking like in our Western culture, we walk from our past is behind us, our future's in front of us, and everything happens in a line. But in most indigenous traditions and paths, we walk in a circle. We walk in the time of the earth and not so much man-made time. And so sometimes it's a struggle to put those two calendars together, but we basically follow a seasonal calendar ceremony and prayer. And that involves, we used to have a medicine wheel, and we always do a form of purification, which is like a sweat lodge, things like that. And we do the purification once a quarter. So we have the 4 seasons that we walk through. So every quarter we like to do some type of purification. Then we have a ritual that we will do. And it depends, like the east is when the sun rises, but it's also the time of spring. So it's the time of manifestation. And then we go into summer, which is our south, and the element is fire. And it's the time of growth and nurturing. And some kind of fire ceremony that goes with that. And then we go into the west, which is the water, which is fall. And we have an inward going. It goes inward, but it's manifestation and inward. So if we look from the east to the west, the east is the outward manifestation and the west is the inward manifestation. Then we move to north, which is the element of earth, and it's the time of winter, and it's the time of just going inward and being still and preparing those things that we want to plant in the garden, as we say, those things that we're going to plant in the east as the spring. And it's really a time of planning what we're going to do for the year. And then we have our center of the medicine wheel is, we call it the great mystery. We call it the creator of all things. And it's basically the creation power. So that's basically our path. These are the indigenous teachings of the indigenous Native Americans. And my dad grew up in Sedona, Arizona, really around the turn of the century, like he was born in 1910. His family has been in charge of a shrine, a holy shrine, and it's called the Door of the Ant. And the creation story goes when there was the flood that came, which we believe that there's 5 worlds, and that was the destruction of the 3rd world. And then people went below with the ant people. And when it was time to come up, they came up into the 4th world and then migrated and had the population. Now we're going into the time of the 5th world. And there's a time, we've known this has been coming in the prophecies for a long time. And it's the time of the shaking and the quaking. So we've had 5 years of the shaking, and now we're in the quaking. And the shaking is in basis, whereas the quaking is more globally. And as we know how we sit, I feel like we're sitting in 1939 Germany, just the way everything is in the world right now. And so there's a lot of ritual that we're doing right now, a lot of purification, really feeling like we're poised in really a lot of the prophecies coming true, and didn't feel like I would see it in my lifetime. But boom, here we are. And so it makes me a little sad for this is what I'm leaving my children and my grandchildren. I wish my generation would have been able to plan better, see better, not leave the world in a jagged mess for the young ones like you and your little ones. And globally, I just wish we would dissolve the borders, and the Adar prophecy is the rainbow hoop, which means we all sit together equally on the wheel of life. And
Would be beautifully amazing. And Masa, if we could bring back the discussion a little bit, right? And for our
Yes.
audience and listeners who are unfamiliar, because we are from the Asian region, how do you utilize the medicine wheel? And just now you mentioned sweat lodge. So that will be the second question. Maybe a little bit about the medicine wheel.
the medicine wheel is really a map of our world. Our world, our stationary points are the east, are on the north and the south. When you think about it, the north and the south are more stationary, and our globe spins, and so sunrise sets in the west. So that itself is the wheel. So when the sun comes up, that's the east. It's the air. And then we go into, and then we follow the seasons. And as we follow the seasons, we get into, again, just like I said, so really the medicine wheel is a measurement of time. And you can use it not only to measure the time of day, just like dawn is east, noon is south, twilight is west, and night is north. So the month, so you can walk it for a year, but then you can also measure it as a life, because we come in the east and we're newborns, and then we go into our like maidenhood and youth and more of our growing. And then as we move into the west, we've had our children, we're raising our children. And I'm moving more towards the north at this time. And when we move from west to north, it's the time of being that, just looking at your life and looking back at your life and looking. And then also as we go forward in farther into north back to east, there's so many books that say we shall become as little children when it's time to leave. We come in as a child and we leave as a child. And so it's that really deep aging that happens between north and east. And we call it threshold medicine of dying, which is actually birthing. And then also in of any time we go through, where those are all thresholds, they're mile markers in our lives. We use the medicine to measure of time and calendar. And then you asked me about the lodge.
Or maybe before that, the medicine will be helpful. How do you use it for healing, and how do you use it for purposes of helping people?
So with the medicine wheel, well, if you're having problems sleeping, it's nice to put that energy of south like in your bedroom, because that is the nerve. It's like fire and nights where we are, not so much where you are, but we're getting our first big rains and we've got a lot of snow up above. So it's that time, so we use it as the directions. Let's say there's something we really need to go inward deeply, then we use the energy of west, because west is just the cycle of descent. So takes us a trough to be able to do that. So walking the wheel, just like you did, you walk the wheel and do that. That footprint is 13 acres. So it's a little way around. But direction is medicine wheels. It's a medicine wheel. And the medicine wheel has every country, even and you go into, this is an ancient science that is older than our own humanity. We don't remember it, how we sit today, the use of this, but if we go back to the earthworks and we go back to every single country has the function, all of that is very important than our own technology. And it goes back to ancient cosmology in what we call shamanic medicine. And so it's really, and I use it for prayer, knowing and use in like how I'm going to plant my garden. It's going to grow my food. I'm going to celebrate like we're just going into winter. Blah. Not my favorite. I'm not a snow fan. I grew up in the desert in Los Angeles. It was near like Tahoe season. But doing the wind's roll, you do the work according to where the wheel is. So that's how you use it for healing. Different things like that.
And operation on Maza guided me for my mission in Egypt, and it went on to a full evolved my spirit guide, parents. And it is just amazing.
Sweat ceremony, and it's many indigenous cultures, not just Native American, but we have the sauna. We've got a lot of the cultures, especially up in the Sweden, Norway, the Netherlands. It's very much part of the cleansing. Japan, the steam room, and also in China, the different ways of cleansing and steam and all of that. So it truly goes way back in almost every indigenous way. But for us, it's going back into the womb. So it's made out of willows, and there's a fire pit inside of it. And then it's outside is a fire pit, and we use lava rocks. So we start a fire on the outside, and then we cover it with blankets. And we go in, we do 4 rounds, and there's all kinds of different sweats and purifications. So there's different kinds. We do a Ho'oponopono one for looking into ourselves for our, I'm sorry, forgive me, gratitude, and love. So we go through those kind of sharp edges in our lives, and we release those. But not only does our body release it in the sweat, but we also do our prayers, and a lot of prayers in there. So usually it consists of 4 rounds, and it's pretty hot. I'm a lodge pourer. It's unusual sometimes to have women who pour the lodge, but I'm a matriarchal clan. There's a lot of people that I've taught over the years. Fortunately, I live in California, and because of climate change over the years, we're not allowed to have fires in the summer. I'm ready to start the lodge season. So we're going to be doing what we call the North Sweat. And as we get ready to purify to go into winter, and we're going to do a winter solstice ceremony that I'll be gathering people to do the lodge to purify before we go into winter. So the sweat lodge is used. We also have what's called the moon lodge, so women that are bleeding for their cycle, we go in and we do a cleansing sweat for them. And the grandmothers then counsel with the young ones. And because during your bleeding cycle, a woman has more clairvoyance and things like that. So we talk about current events. We let them do their visioning through the sweat lodge. And with that visioning, we discuss those things. And then we take that back to our group of elders. So that's another way that we use the sweat lodge.
Interesting. I didn't know that during the time of the month, we might actually have greater clairvoyant abilities. That's really interesting.
Yeah. So we use it as the cleansing, but it's also a time where the older women get together with the younger women, and we've got women with the children or women that are pregnant or just things like that. So it gives us an opportunity to come together with the youth and the elders and really come together to co-create more community. So that's really important.
And just now you mentioned the sweat lodge. One is the Ho'oponopono ritual. The second one is the moon ritual. And maybe just another one.
Another one is the releasing lodge. And so one of the lodges is that usually by the third round, people that are angry. Here in the U.S., we've definitely had a lot of diverse politics, as we say, over the last couple of, November 5th and over the last year, there's been so much negative rhetoric and just crazy time. I haven't seen anything like this in my whole life. They're really angry. And so it's a time where you start doing the prayers. And so each round is more intense. So by the third round, you just get it out.
Release everything.
And really, it's just, we don't listen to each other. It's just, you focus it into the fire pit and then release it. And we just ask it to be transmuted. And then
Asians in Korea, Japan, Singapore, this would be something really beneficial. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, definitely. A releasing round, I don't do them all the time because they're pretty intense and they're a little bit hard. They're not hard to hold. If you've been doing sweat as long as I've been doing sweat, it's not a problem. But for some people, it gets intense and they're just like, get me out of here. Because it can be claustrophobic. It's low to the ground because of the heat. We want the heat to stay in the blankets. But always we will open it up and we say, Firekeeper, give us breath and life. And the firekeeper will come over and open the door and things like that. So it's a beautiful way of cleansing and creating community. And it's nice to get your community together to sweat.
Yes, and I see that as a ritual, and also where it's also a communion where this ceremony brings people together so that information can be passed from generation to generation, and then keeping connected with each other, because most of the time without rituals such as this, we lose touch between our lineage, our traditions, and okay. Thank you for sharing that, Maza. And
you're welcome.
Maybe if you could share with us your wish for the world, or let's say that what is the thing that you aspire and hope to see in the coming 3 years for the world?
We're entering the time of purification. We're entering in a time where we either have to get it or we won't. And we're in a time that requires a lot of deep prayer. And I wish people would, really my big prayer is being racist and just understand we're all on the blue marble going around and drawing lines in the sand and stepping over them and saying you can't be there or I can't be there and things like that. And I understand with the countries and all this, but I need more power than you need more power. You're not good because you're on that side and you're not good on that side. And my prayer is so deeply that we could just drop all of that and realize that we're humans first, before we're a country, before we're a ethnicity, we're human beings. And that's where we have to come to respect each other.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And the poverty is extreme for those that are really impoverished, and the wealth is beyond wealth, that is just, people don't need to amass that much wealth, that it really needs to be given in an equal amount. And it would just be really good to live in a world that we didn't have money. And that wasn't the thing that made the world go round. So that's my prayer. That's my prayer.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, Marza. I share the same sentiments. And fostering understanding and also crossing cultures, understanding what's actually happening on the other side of the world. And also, actually, fundamentally, we all probably want the same thing: peace, stability, harmony.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and part of what the Lawkeepers Circle and what this festival is about is increasing the understanding, connecting the bridges. And I wish to thank you so much for allowing that to happen. And
You're welcome. As a grandmother, as an ethnic grandmother, I'm known as Grandmother Two Clouds, which is my medicine name. And that's my prayer as a wisdom keeper, as a keeper of the prophecies and the earth keeper. That's where I'm at, is that we go back to the earth, we do our prayers, and not let technology overcome our humanity.
yes, thank you so much, Marza. And
You're welcome.
thank you.
Yeah. Again, my thanks and gratitude for Marza for sharing her wisdom with us. I just noticed there might be a lag in the video and the audio. Yeah, I think there's some extraction issues, and we apologize for that. Hopefully, it has not disrupted your experience of Marza's wisdom. Yeah. Please feel free to fill questions about that as well. And I think towards the audience Q&A. Next up, we'll be bringing Jeffrey on with us today. If I may introduce Jeffrey. Jeffrey has the name of Fox Spirit Joy. His mantra is, thank you, universe, for providing me with everything that I need and most deeply desire, even that which I do not know yet is possible. Jeffrey represents a blend of traditions or core shamanism using the Michael Hunter definition, combining the central features of shamanism from around the globe. Without further ado, let's bring Jeffrey on with us today. Hi, Jeffrey. Jeffrey, I cannot hear
Jeffrey's
you.
muted.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Dr. KY. It's a real pleasure to be here. I would like to just start with a quote from J. Krishnamurti. It is no measure of one's health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society. So I'll just let that set for a second. I think, leading into shamanism, Marza said something about power. And shamanism for me is about the power path. And I'm not talking about power in the traditional sense of holding a place of power like prime minister or president or CEO or billionaire status that we know of in the material world. It's really about power and being able to master power or energy. When we talk about the soul, we can say the soul is synonymous with energy frequency. It's the life force that's in all of us. And I just want to say that I've been following a shamanic path most of my life. Since I was a small boy, I was always fascinated and interested to know who was that mysterious person with a mask or beating a drum and going into states of altered consciousness. So that led me to traveling to many places around the world to look at more closely what is it about shamanism or these healers of indigenous cultures that makes it a unique way to really approach healing. Coming from the Western society and Western medicine, this was novel to me, and I had my skeptic hat on every time I would encounter these people and experiences. But I realized they've been doing this for thousands of years. And Michael Harner was an anthropologist from New York, and he traveled to the upper Amazon basin back in the 1960s as perhaps one of the first non-native people to actually try Yahweh or ayahuasca, this brew of two plants from the Amazon that were brewed together to put a person into altered states and have visions. And he himself became a shamanic practitioner, because shamanism is all about the personal experience. What shamanism is not is a religion, and it is really a spiritual practice. So when we talk about shamanism, it has been found around the globe in just about every culture that anthropologists and sociologists have studied. You can find core elements of shamanism throughout. Now, I'm from Southern California, but I grew up on the Oregon coast as a young boy, and I spent a lot of time with my Finnish grandfather, who would put us in the sauna, which was the tradition of the steam cleanse for the whole family to be naked together and have this cleansing experience. I also had experiences of burning my leg when I was 3 years old, to the point where I had to have the skin graft for the 3rd-degree burn. I had to learn to change my own bandages when it would come off, which is a very young age to learn about the healing process. I took care of my grandmother when I was 13 as she transitioned from this life and passed, and being present for the soul leaving the body. I've had many experiences more recently as an adult with plant medicines in the jungle of Peru, and of course ayahuasca being one of them, San Pedro or Wachuma. Going into these altered states of consciousness reminded me that when I was a child healing my burned leg, I would rock myself into a frenzy or an altered state, employing or firing that parasympathetic nervous system in my own body. It was a natural body response to rock myself and soothe that pain of that experience. So for me, shamanism is all about the personal experience. It is about using energy and frequency. And I have a couple of instruments that the shamans of North America, Central, South America will use. And of course, one of them is the drum. You don't always need plant medicine to go into an altered state. This is a shamanic drum. And, this sort of drum, you can see it here, is you hold it from the back, and I don't know if you can hear this, but a real steady beat of about 120 beats per minute will send you into entrainment. So it sends you into those deeper brainwave states, where then you are now opened to go into a shamanic journey. And the shaman will beat the drum to take an individual who is seeking healing. And the shaman is usually the one, traditionally in a lot of cultures, who takes the plant medicine and goes to the journey with their spirit guides, spirit animals, who are the helpers to find what it is that this person needs, and brings it back from another dimension and blows it into the individual, blowing it 3 times into the chest, into the third eye, into the top of the head, these chakra points. So the shamanic vision or understanding of the cosmos, using the medicine wheel that Marza talked about, the 4 cardinal directions is very prominent in shamanism. But you also have the upper world, going to the star nations, recognizing the sun, the moon, going down into Mother Earth or Pachamama. but also inside the heart, the inner world. So there are the four corners, but also the other three dimensions, which shamanism talks about: the lower world, the middle world, and the upper world. So the shaman will go depending on what is needed. The spirit guides, these spirit or power animals, will take you in. If you have the vision of a tree with a hole going into the root system, and you journey with the drum or another instrument or plant medicine, you journey into the lower world. Or maybe you need to bring something back from the middle world, where spirits like us, living beings, live simultaneously with other spirits that we don't necessarily see in the normal state of consciousness. Or perhaps the shaman is being called to go to the upper world to bring something back to assist the one who is seeking healing. I have a couple of other instruments which are, ancient technologies. This is a Shipibo rattle. And you can do the same thing as the drum. Now, this is made by the Shipibo tribe of the Amazon. And you can create entrainment with the rattle as well. Another instrument from Vietnam is called a dan moi, or dan moi. And this is a mouth harp. It is very interesting for me to use because my father was in the Vietnam-American War in the 1960s when I was born. And this is brass from an expended bullet that was then turned into a mouth harp. So just turning something that was used to harm human beings to then create music, for me, is very special. So that's an example of another instrument that can be used to create brain entrainment within a group or an individual to lead a shamanic healing session. I want to be very clear that I don't consider myself a shaman, but rather a shamanic practitioner. I have facilitated shamanic circles using the medicine wheel as technology, calling in the ancestors, calling in all spirit guides, and clearing a space so that healing can take place. I am not the one doing the healing. The healing is done by the individual. I am facilitating that healing by creating a safe space. So shamanism is really now coming into harmony with science. Science is able to now do more investigative, exploratory research into the effectiveness of shamanism and the shamanic journey. And we know that Tibetan monks have been hooked up to sensors to measure with a functional MRI, like the deeper brainwave states that they can go into by meditating. This is an old shamanic practice. So it is the equivalent of going into a shamanic journey. So I find it fascinating that there is a growing interest in these ancient traditions and technologies, which have, like I've said before, been around for millennia. And why are they becoming so popular today? I would say that people are realizing things are out of balance. The patriarchy system that has been in place for over 3,000 years has put us with a material focus on the planet. We are out of sync with nature. We're out of sync with our own nature. And I was on the pilgrimage with KY to Egypt. And one of the big takeaways for me is that the divine feminine wants to come and be in partnership with the divine masculine to bring back harmony so that we can be back in touch with nature to solve the problems that we're facing on the planet.
Wow. Yeah. Um, I need a few moments to let it sink in. And thank you, Jeffrey, for sharing your insights, experience, and wisdom. There's a lot to unpack there, but maybe I'll just mention a little bit about brain entrainment. Is that our brains are at different frequencies, different regions of our brains are at alpha, delta, theta. And entrainment is a process where you bring the brain to coherence, all the brain regions to resonate, to have the same frequency, the same hertz frequency, and it can be done through drumming, ceramic drumming. But if you think that this is something that's really out there, actually in our mother's womb, we are entrained to our mom's heartbeat for the 9 months. And that's how we are actually synced to this. And some of you from the Asia region and you know of Pokemon, there's this episode where they featured Porygon, one of the Pokemons, and because of the flashing lights, right, the brain entrainment happened globally and resulted in, if I'm not mistaken, 10,000 seizures, and there was a massive emergency department visit by pediatric children. Not to say that this is dangerous or anything, it's just that the capabilities of our brain to be entrained either by light or by sound. That's something that we can harness for our own healing and for our own understanding, our own personal development. I just would like to touch a little bit about that before we move on, but there's so much to talk about in the panel discussion, and I can't wait for that. Thank you, Jeffrey. And next up, we will bring on our next speaker. Just introduce Isis. Isis is she's a lady with a lot of wisdom. She started her journey at the young age of 4, where with the death of her mom, she had developed this desire to commune with the unseen, the ancestors, and those on the other side has been at the forefront of her life, which led her to learn rituals as a way of life. At the age, she moved from Guam and began her studies in mythology and breathwork, which led her to the focus of ancient mystery studies, sacred sciences, and earth wisdom traditions. Nowadays, she is best known for her role as the producer of the Compass at the Lightning in a Water Festival, and she also leads pilgrimages to the sacred land of Kemet, the modern name of Egypt, and she will share a little bit insight of how she views the world, how she views the wisdom of the ancients. And let's bring on Isis. Isis also is involved in the ceremony right at this time over in the US, so she will be here with us in spirit in a recording.
Hi, this is Dr. Yong here, and I feel so privileged to have Isis over here with us. Her chief leader and organizer of the Nile River and Great Pyramid pilgrimage that I recently went to. I learned a lot from her, and today we will be learning some extra information about esoteric traditions from Isis herself. Hi.
Greetings. Thank you so much for having me. What an honor to be here. My name is Isis Indriya, born in Mesa, Arizona, raised on the island of Guam. So I say Hafa from my culture and my tradition, Chamorro people. And I'm chiming in from the ancestral homelands of the Nisanans area, Nevada City, California. And yeah, I'm really honored to be here. So grateful to be welcomed. Thank you.
Thank you for being here to share a little bit about your tradition and what it represents and what it means.
Yes. I come from the island of Guam, Guahan, which is Chamorro people, as I said. And we're island people. I was raised surrounded by the grandmother ocean in the Pacific. And I was raised in villages. We don't really have towns or cities. They're villages because it's so small. And one of the things that was really something I just treasure so much in the way I was raised, there were so many legends and stories all over the land, like legends and stories on this cliff and legends and stories in this tree and legends and stories of this part of the body of water. And everything had an aliveness. So you knew by this particular part of the jungle, you would be in relationship with these ancestor trees. And there was a way of respect and a way of being that we had to learn to be in communion with the natural way of being as the natural world and as humans. There's this this aspect called Malik. And one part of that is the way to maintain harmony between all relations, human and more than human, is through a deep respect. And so I come here with respect your bloodlines and ancestors where you come from, where I come from. And that was something that was really embedded in our culture, even in the relationships with elders and young ones and the system of communication. And through that genuine observation and study and learning as island people, I was also raised with my dad, Clifford Anthony Guzman, very much traveling and open to something that he very early on introduced me to, and that became a lifelong study for me, was ancient Egypt. He would talk about it. And I remember, I think when I was about 19 years old, I went on a journey to Kemet, to Egypt, a 3-week journey. I followed a teacher who was following the teacher. And I went and I found love. And I have been studying Egypt since. And I probably will in my life, particularly ancient Egypt. And so that's really been a primary interest for a long time, because I find that so many of our origins are connected to ancient Egypt, or origin stories, or creation stories, or the majesty of the Great Pyramid as an example, that it's like one of the only 7 ancient wonders of the world that is still standing. And so there's so many things about ancient Egypt that A, open up on wonder, and B, one thing I was taught once is that the further we go back into our origins, the more we awaken more inside of ourselves to help us create and build the future. And so I've been so deeply embedded in the study. I do feel that there's a lot of teachings in the cosmology and the temples themselves, the Great Pyramid, the way of life, the understanding to be part of a cosmological ecosystem, humans in relationship to the earth, to the cosmos, relationship that in the ancient stories that help us really, I find, at least from isolation, 3 realms are us as humans, embedded in this magnificent emerald earth, floating in the cosmos with these other celestial bodies moving forward in motion amongst the cosmos. And it's just so incredible how ancient Egypt has really carried a lot of wisdom teachings and ancient teachings of how to commune with the heavenly realms on planet Earth as humans, and how to be conscious and how we create in relationship to all 3 realms. So this has been my source of study. I could go on forever and ever to the break of dawn. But I go to Kemet regularly and I have Egyptian family relations, and I go there regularly because I really learn so much, and I find it to be very useful and very valuable to help us in this time of our human transition.
And as is for the audience over here in Asia, maybe you could share a little bit about how can we utilize the wisdom of the Egyptian tradition, and maybe you can share with us a case study of how does the knowledge, how does it help an individual, and what is the experience like?
One of the things that I find that can be very helpful is a complete change in perspective. Like what Wayne Dyer says, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. So how we perceive the world is really important. Our perception is everything. What we imagine, what we think influences what we say and what we do, and our actions, our behaviors, and our habits, and our destinies. So one of the things that ancient Egyptian studies has been really helpful for me in is completely changing my perspective to the degree where I engage and see and experience the world in an entirely new way than I did beforehand. And even as I study deeper, it still happens that way. One of the things they really talked about is how to unite heaven and how to live heaven on earth, how to model the heavenly realms on earth for the purpose of collaborating and co-shaping together. And this was through the format of ritual way of life, what it means to live and commune with the sacred way of life, where there's an aliveness in everything, where there's a communication in the wind, the way the wind blows, and the communication in the way that we had this thought and somebody called, or a communication in a full moon and the light of the full moon that comes in and nourishes the land to the degree where we can see the stars, or the way that we travel through the zodiacal wheel and all the astrological signs. that there's this interdependent dynamic occurring that is a big part of how we are actually creating in the world. And sometimes as humans, it's, oh, I got this, or I'm doing this, I got this, I'm as us as humans. But really, it's not really true, really, when we think about it, because we are interdependent with the earth and we are interdependent with the cosmos. We're very influenced, we're very connected to what's happening. And so the function of ritual, and ritual meaning, there's so many meanings of ritual, but in one context, how we align our heart, our mind, our thoughts, our words, our actions, our gestures in coherence with an intention, and the attention to the intention on behalf of creating more beauty in the world, doing something good, living a sacred way of life where we're in deep reverence for the preciousness of life, where we value the opportunity to be a spirit and a body, period, and thus recognize the responsibility of our creative potential, what we're creating. And then in the ancient Egyptian traditions, at least in my studies and the work of ritual, is how to consciously create with the natural world and with the with the cosmos. How to be in alignment with creation. How do we attune to a new world? What kind of intentions do we set? Where what lands are we on? What's growing at that time? What is happening in the seasons? What animals are alive and moving about at that moment? Attuning to what's happening in the season of where we are and being in relationship with the natural world, combined with attunement to what's going on in the cosmos. The way the sun moves, the moon moves, stars move, cosmic alignments, things like that. We're more connected. We're a part of it. We're aware that we're a part of it.
Yeah. Connected, listening into and getting a feeling into what wants to happen, and then having that co-creating, co-manifesting with what is actually in flow. Yeah.
And it not just with only humans, where collaboration grows to the living life force of the natural world and the cosmos. We expand our relations.
And as if you could share with us, what is the common theme among the tradition that you embody and other Asian traditions? What is the common link or theme that you see
between my tradition and other traditions?
Yeah, for example, the North American tradition or maybe the Indian tradition. What are the bridges that connect them?
The thing that I am attuned to immediately is, I like this, utilize this phrase often, communing with the sacred way of life, where we're in communion with the sacred, the holy life force of creation, the God creation creating itself through us, the great spirit, whatever term we want to call it, goddess, the Netzeru, communing with the sacred and the sacred way of life, and being in the aliveness of everything.
And I feel that is all the Asian traditions have this reverence for the divine and the connection they have with the sacred. That's what's really lost nowadays, and part of what lawkeepers, what we intend to do is to reestablish that connection to our tradition, to our roots, to the legends and the myths that you talked about. Yeah. Would you like to add anything to that?
Yeah, I love this phrase, divine human nature. We are humans made up of the nature and the divine human nature. We are two-legged standing beings that are made up of the body of the earth and the stars, the cosmos. Every indigenous culture and tradition, the ones that run in my bloodlines and the ones that I've studied, share a relationship with the magnificence of the holy elements of life of the earth and star relations, cosmic relations. We're made up of both. And our divine human nature is, in a way, an alignment and or an awakening to what it means to be a vehicle for creation to create itself through us.
And I recall a statement by Jean Houston saying that the blood that flows in our veins are made up from the brine from the seas, and we are made of stardust. And it's while on this journey, it's like slowly but surely, I'm getting more and more an embodiment of that understanding and feeling more and more of this. And it's just an amazing realization and experience to feel that we are part of truly something bigger. We are the drop in the ocean and we are also the ocean itself. And that's what I've been experiencing recently. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And do you have a wish for the audience that's listening to what you're sharing today?
One thing I will share that my dad said to me. So it's a passage, it's really my dad's wisdom. He said, if I could offer you one piece of wisdom that I've learned in my life, he said, keep a consciousness of wonder. Engage in a consciousness of wonder, because the world will keep opening up and blossoming inside of you.
Beautiful.
Even with the grief of the world and the sadness and the absolute unfathomable destruction, somehow in that too, and that we know we need to grieve, we need to genuinely feel unfathomable unfairness and destruction too. But while we grieve also too, being in wonder and awe of creation also, because that's where the imagination comes in. And the imagination is where the ideas and the solutions and what's emergent can arise to help us create the beauty that we stand for, that we want to keep, that we want to protect, and that we want to see for our children and infinite generations into the future. So joy as activism combined with genuine willingness to feel the suffering, both.
Yes, I am taking that in and feeling that, yes, we may feel the pain, we may be empathetic with whatever is going, but never lose sight of the joy and the wonder and that sense of curiosity of learning. And leaning into that part is what allows us to change the paradigm, to move things forward, in spite of whatever that's happening in this moment. And yeah, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your time with us today. I just truly appreciate you.
Thank you so much for having me. What a blessing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, it looks like we lost our two guests.
No worries. I'll just do some commenting while we await our guests.
Oh yeah, they're back. I can see
Yeah.
Jeffrey and oh god. Okay.
Yeah, like magic, boom, when they're back.
Oh.
Just a little bit of summary about what Isis is sharing, or just a little bit of thought. And when Isis mentioned, connection with the cosmos, connections with the universe,
Yeah.
we may feel that, what is that? But I just want you to consider, the audience, it's like when you're at the beach and you look at the tides. Look at the tides again when there's a full moon. Look at the tides again when there's no moon. Notice the difference. And you can realize that pull, that magnetism of the moon, the effects on the planet, also has an effect on Earth. And that goes for other celestial beings in the sky. It's just that whether we put our attention to that or not. And a big part about this festival is about one thing to me is that we fear what we don't understand. And once you understand, you know, and once you know, you can begin to love. And that's how we begin to foster understanding, cooperation, and collaboration. And this is what this session is about. And we'll be talking about this more in depth in the panel discussion. And so glad to have our guests back with us today. Eugene, you have anything to add before we go into the panel discussion?
I am extremely in awe of our speakers today with the in-depth knowledge, the passion that they share. Many things that you guys talk about, I would say that I only recently come to an understanding on an awareness in probably just the recent years. And I've been a curious student of this topic for many years, maybe past a decade. But I can also imagine it creates this discussion space that I didn't think I'd have that 10 years ago. Or maybe they existed, but it's all in the West. Asian, we don't have any inroads into such things. But we are getting a lot more information now. But at the same time with the internet, going out there to click and try to find knowledge like you guys shared today, it's very, very messy. And sometimes we don't even get the right information. So having this discussion straight from the horse's mouth, from the practitioners itself, it is extremely valuable. So I don't take that lightly. I'm very honored to be amongst you guys in this 4 people screen, sitting here and just absorbing everything. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Eugene. And dear audience, if you like what you've seen so far, to allow us to do this more in the future, we will appreciate your kind donation, because Law Keepers Circle is actually a non-profit, and whatever we receive will go into running programs, events, festivals that has the nature of what's you're seeing and watching today. And without further ado, we'll jump into the panel discussion. The first question that I'd like to ask our panel speakers is that, what do modern seekers most misunderstand about esoteric traditions? And maybe Roedy would like to go first, and followed by Jeffrey. What do most modern seekers most misunderstand about esoteric traditions? I think I ask on behalf of the audience as well.
Okay. Well, basically the people today, they need to know what we come from. It has to do with the history of human race. So they should understand, because of the information that we have today. We have an easy access to understand what we're trying to share in these seminars. People would have easily come to the point where sources are available to access. So getting that knowledge, understanding, based on my perspective, doing international seminar on traditional knowledge, holistics, herbal medicines, doing some breath work, and people would capture within a week. I'm just sharing of what I've been doing when I hold international camp for 1 week. People from different culture, different background wants to know what specifically what we talking about. There they would enrich the knowledge, and they would see the benefit of of understanding what your questions are, because they are finding based on manuscripts or non-manuscript data. For instance, you have experience with Egypt, right? So how can we relate with Egypt, and something that we can draw back the line when we have Gunung Padang. You can Google it, because I can always share it easily. So all these elements and point that we're talking about are basically would assist people to understand what we're trying to discuss on this topic. That's to my understanding, only to based on my testimony of when I conduct international camp on self defense, local wisdom, ancients, intellectuals, and so on, which also part of the elements of we're talking about. If I could answer your questions, thank you.
Thank you, Roedy. And Jeffrey, would you like to have a go at the question? What do most modern seekers most misunderstand about esoteric traditions?
I apologize if I repeat anything that Roedy might have said. I couldn't hear his presentation nor his offer just now, so I apologize. One thing that I've noticed is there seems to be a real effusion or popularity about going to the jungle of the Amazon or Costa Rica to do ayahuasca. And for folks who think that they can just go and drink some magical brew in the jungle, and all of a sudden they are a shaman, or that they're going to be cured. Oh, I got a download during my ayahuasca journey. I know the answer to all of my woes and problems. And I think that there is that quick fix mentality, like the smartphone. I'll just get an app for that. Or I'll just go do ayahuasca once on a retreat or eat some magic mushrooms, and I'll be healed. So I think there's a tendency to want to short circuit the real work, because this is shadow work. This is stuff that has been suppressed, not even this lifetime, but for generations. It's ancestral trauma. It is trauma that has been inflicted on the earth for millennia, that we, as Einstein says, we need solutions that don't even exist, or the problems we're facing cannot be solved by the current solutions and technologies that we have. We need to think beyond that.
Yeah.
And I think that there is this tendency to want to spiritual bypass in a way that just says, oh, well, it's okay, I'll just take this pill and all will be good.
You know why I was smiling just now was because I've known, I mean, trying to be like I mentioned, a student of the art. I've been in many circles, and I hear people going for one retreat, come out of one ayahuasca trip, and like, I now know the secrets to the universe. And there's this other guy that I spoke to. He's like, oh, how long? I want to unlock my spiritual side. Okay, that's great. And he's like, is there a shortcut? And I get that a lot. Is there a shortcut? And I don't know how to answer that.
Yeah.
There is no such as a shortcut.
You have to do the work, right?
Yeah.
Agree.
And it's deep work. It's not, I would say, it's a soul-bearing journey, and it's there is ups and downs. There's a roller coaster ride. The shadow work part isn't sexy, but it's necessary. Yeah. and if I may give my own take about what modern seekers most misunderstand about esoteric traditions, I would say that some people may have the idea that, oh, all these esoteric traditions, they are black magic, they are voodoo, they are all sorts of dark arts that we shouldn't trifle with. Again, it goes back to we fear what we don't understand. And once you can see what it is, what do each of our speakers represent, what they want for the world, especially for healing and healing, it is not about personal gain, it's not about power, wealth, or whatever. Yeah, and I just want to seal that in before I move on to the second question. And it's like, maybe we have, because you usually brought this up also, and I want to lead it in also. How does these traditions invite and support personal growth and spiritual evolution? How do these rituals and ceremonies help in us building inner peace and resilience? And I like, maybe Jeffrey would like to go first, and we'll have Roedy follow up next.
Finding the inner peace, yes. So I'm in California, I'm in San Diego, and I've really been sitting with the results of the recent elections here in the United States. And my triggers, my normal triggers, I've really tried to find, by doing this work, is finding equanimity and becoming equanimous, finding that center and not going to the left, not going to the right, the negative or the positive, but finding where that sweet spot is in the middle. It's all inside. I choose, or I allow to be triggered or react to anything that's external to me. And that has been perhaps one of the biggest gifts from the work that I've been doing, is to find the inner peace through meditation, through the shamanic drumming, the music, having community, and finding the inner peace is knowing. For example, I lead a weekly meditation at work, and allowing myself to bring that equanimity to colleagues, even though they're feeling the tensions, the divisiveness. That helps me enhance my own centeredness and groundedness.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that, Jeffrey. And Roedy, yeah, how do these traditions support personal growth and spiritual evolution in terms of building resilience, inner peace, and beyond? Yeah.
Okay. Well, we are in the full awareness that preserving our traditions, our values, local wisdoms, cultural identities, are very important for us as a community and as a nations, fourth largest populations in the world. Knowing that the interventions, I'm not saying that technology is all bad, but if you don't balance yourself with the cultural values, your cultural identities, it won't help you to grow to the directions of our dreams. There were past, present, and futures. That's how we see ourselves by preserving it, because it will help you to grow to the path that we want to achieve as a humans. If I speak, specifically specifically about the nation of Nusantara, we had a big history, from Sundaland, discover the whole area of geography. They believe in the same moral value and traditional value. I'm 62 now, so I try to share my knowledge to younger generation within the scope of families, communities, uh, university students. That really important. The the culture's identity, the traditional values are very high. Like you have a crown above your head. Uh, that will give you to have an understanding about how to value yourself. That means a lot, for others, and then you will achieve something from that value. We would call it that achievement. Total achievement is when others can benefit from it. So that how I actively, come up with programs, workshop, sharing knowledge in a small scope, international scope. Of course, based on my passion in it has to do with the holistic programs, breathwork, martial art, kujang, philosophy, and other things. Something like we discussed today. So we have something in common. We're talking about Southeast Asian cultures or global culture. That's how we should work. This is a big homework for us, for the especially what we call it the Gen Z. What do you call it? Generation of the young generation that need to revive their culture identity. So it's important for them to know uh, about their goals. That's what we we see this day. You know, it's happening right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Rudy. Thank you, Rudy. And I think Rudy also mentioned, and you probably sense what I was going to ask next, which is, how do these esoteric traditions, what are the challenges these traditions face in the globalized world, and how can these ancient practices adapt to the current modernization without losing their essence, without losing the audience, without fading into the unknown? Yeah, I think Rudy briefly touched on that, and maybe Jeffrey, your take on this.
Okay. So how do we have to deal with our challenges? It's through the school program. We have government regulations. It's a mandatory from the children, primary school until high school. They have an extra curriculums about the traditional values, traditional intellectuals. So it is assessed part of their school program. So this kind of what we call it, extracurricular educations would have as a parameter how we are going to achieve about our program. Uh, it is very serious issue here because of the I would say there's a cultural imperialism, which is something we need to learn, So, but we don't fade away our local values. So I think through the educations that we have to revive, because there are still many that we have to learn from different area of Indonesia. Mind you, we have 17,000 islands, and then with different belief, different race, different language, different feature of people. So unity and diversity. That's the only way that we believe what we were taught in my generations. So by doing that, we still have to preserve, because preserving is something that has to do with your identity, something that you want to practice. You mentioned our friend from US mentioned about shamanism, and of course, still being practiced a lot here. If you happen to travel to Indonesia one day, you might also want to see the book called Ring of Fires by Blair's, the anthropologist from England. They got a lot of money from Ringo Starr way back in 1970s. I think that if you can share that, which means something that you share, within the perspective of our nations and Southeast Asian culture, that how we can do it to exchange something that will be discussed, because we really count on this traditional value a lot, to balance our life, living healthy, well and healthy. We experience COVID. There's a human disaster history. How we survive is through the traditional knowledge, local wisdom, the belief. That's when people have to survive. This is proven that the traditional intellectuals, knowledge, uh, all kind of things that we have to encounter, proven that today, by if you preserve your traditional value, cultural values, we discover the whole spectrum of a life, health, missions, dreams. Uh, you can see it, during the era of COVID. This is what I experienced. So I infected myself from COVID, but I never inject myself, because I believe in holistic traditional system to cure myself. So we found that our uh, you know herbal systems, medications, traditional medication that helps, and I'm still live here, and scientifically proven. When I got the sample of my blood, had my immune system develop, and then the people ask me if I do some magic tricks. No, it's because you believe of the values of your ancestor, how to keep yourself in the most healthy way, mind over matters, all kind of things that we used to practice 1,000 years ago. Therefore, in today's time, we need to emphasize how important that the value that we're talking of this topic can maintain the healthy life of human race. Thank you.
Thank you, Roedy. Thank you, Roedy. And Jeffrey, if we could hear from you at what do challenges esoteric traditions face in this globalized world, and how can these Asian practices adapt to modernity without losing their essence?
Yeah, so I'll start with the example of you and I going to Egypt. And I what weighed on me coming back from Egypt and thinking about all of the bottles of water, the plastic, it's very hot in the desert, so we were consuming a lot of water. What ecological impact are we having with mass tourism, mass transportation? Within 24 hours, I can go from San Diego and I can be in the jungle of the Amazon. But what impact is that creating? Ayahuasca has become very popular, is become sort of a fad. So more and more people are consuming it. Are we consuming the plant to the point where it's going to be, will it risk becoming extinct? Are we going to overconsume it? And I've had conversations with shamans about this. And they said, ayahuasca is going from the Amazon out to the planet. It's being grown in places like Hawaii and elsewhere. It is being performed in ritual and ceremony across the planet. And the spirit of the jungle, the spirit of the jaguar, the spirit of the guacamayo, the macaw bird, these spirits are going out from the Amazon for a reason at this particular time. How is modernity merging with these esoteric ancient traditions? You think about the music that is played in ceremony for ayahuasca. Before, it was all pre-Columbian instruments. And I go to 2 ceremonies every year. I'm not going to say where, but it is much closer than going to the Amazon. And one of my good friends has all pre-Columbian instruments. And another shaman practitioner has the handpan. This is a very recent instrument that was created, I think, only 20 years ago by a Swiss man. But the handpan is played in ceremony, and it's merging these newer instruments with these ancient traditions of singing to the plants and plant medicines. So there is a blending. There is this beautiful cosmic cocktail being created. And it's happening for a very particular reason, which is the situation we find ourselves in. So yeah, it's not surprising to me. And it also concerns me when I think about the ecological impact I'm having traveling to many places around the planet.
Actually, I don't mind if I jump in here, Kuan Yu, because you mentioned about traveling, and just now the Roedy was talking about keeping traditions alive, and I was thinking about this particular line, which I think is a nice segue in as well, is beyond just the culture and heritage as an identity, which what Roedy mentioned just now. Is there perhaps a spiritual DNA imprint in all of us based on where we are from? Because today, in a world where we can pretty much just live and work anywhere within 24 hours, I can be in the United States, right? And I can start a life there. Will that impact my traditional spiritual connection over time? And what's going to happen to my next generation? So, Roedy or Jeffrey, this is open to both of you.
Okay. You want to go first, Jeffrey, or myself? You gonna go first, or shall I?
Jeffrey?
I think Jeffrey can't hear Roedy.
Oh.
So Roedy is asking whether you'd like to go first or he can go first.
I can speak to this.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, everything that we see as separate from self, from the I am, is all illusion. It's called Maya in the Vedic tradition. There is no separation between us. And so to ask that question, is there a spiritual DNA built into all of us? I would say my lived experience says a definite yes. And I'm very careful as well to be culturally sensitive. When I talk about universal or core shamanism, I try to respect the individual tribes or groups of people who are practicing certain rituals and ceremony. Because I didn't grow up in that community. I didn't grow up in that tribe or particular tradition. So for me, it's always with caution, and I always ask permission.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay. Let me contribute my point of view. This interesting question. Spiritual DNA, it is embedded since we were born, but also the DNA itself can be alternate based on the community that you are spending with. Alternation is not saying that you have many type of DNA. When I'm saying spiritual DNA, it would grow and expand to the point that you want to reach as per individual mission or the mission of your communities. Because what happened as we explore more about the traditional knowledge, cultural values, any values that we see, it would connect closely to our spiritual development. Uh, so you grow like when you go aging, right? So this is how we see it. I thought, I'm spending almost 25 years overseas, 5 years in China, 15 years in North America, so I feel myself, I'm a mismatch, like I got Western's perspective, Asian perspective. So when I come down, I return to my hometown, where I come from, and try to recoup, to learn again about my root. I personally see that our spiritual DNA would go and grow as per how you would interact, or you would go to the deeper level of your background.
So you start from a root and then you just adopt everything else, and it becomes just one big world consciousness. It's not so. So the original base matters, but we evolve over time. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, you're correct. I spent some time with First Nation in the state, or mostly in Canada. I went to Mexico, right, and see visit the one of the temples there, and then I visit Gunung Padang. You can research that. The anthropologists saying that it's older than Egypt. So, and how we evolve our spiritual DNA. So we go bit by bit, because it's very interesting. When I visit Mexico, I went to see the Human Anthropology Museum. I think that's one of the most complete history of the human anthropology. So how people travel from the Sundaland to Mexico, and then they assimilate, maybe cross cultures and cross marriage or something, and then it gave me the idea that this is how our spiritual DNA would determine how we would enrich ourselves, because you're talking about spiritual, something that tangible and intangible. Well, mostly we live day by day is in the spiritual elements, like an oxygen, right? We call it goyib. So you cannot see it, you cannot feel it, but you live in the spiritual world, not mostly in the abstracts. Mostly people see that we live in a concrete life, but we are driven by an abstract elements. Would you call it spirituals? Everything that we see around us is, something that intangible. Like 80% of our mind is driven by some subconscious mind. So that's how I experience. I can only speak based on experience, personal experience, a group of people experience that I have a community that I established. So that's how we basically, if we want to explore or discover something about your DNA, because when you talk about DNA, you're talking about something physically, your bloodlines. But, so I'm happy that you raised that word, spiritual DNA. That's a good one.
Thank you for that. So like you mentioned about the 80% in the mind, I think that's very much based on optics, memories, and perception. It's how we want to see it, right? The next question I have actually is from the community. Just pop two questions in at the same time, because we're running out of time. Just going to pop two questions in at the same time. This one's from Jillian Fernandez, which I thought was a rather cute question, and probably for Jeffrey, because you are living in the United States. And Sean Chong as well saying, also this is for Jeffrey. Let me just read out what Jillian says first. This could be something that you may have at your fingertips already. Would like to know more about skinwalkers. Right? So, and Sean Chong is asking, hi Jeffrey, what separates you from being a shaman, since you are already facilitating the others on shamanic practices? I'm not sure if that makes sense. I don't quite understand that question. Maybe you do. You do.
I can take the second question first.
Okay.
And so traditionally, the shaman is chosen by the community, or a shaman practitioner who designates someone who is perhaps young, has something that happens to them. Could be struck by lightning or a near-death experience. And an elder shaman may take that person, a young member of the community, under their wing as sort of an apprentice shaman. And that was not the case for me. I was not raised in such a community, although I do have some Cherokee blood. I was so far removed from my great grandmother, who was half Cherokee on my mother's side. I was not in proximity to that community. So I take and hold that term shaman with a lot of reverence. And so I am not like the healer or facilitator of healing in a community. I do work with individuals and several people at a time, but yeah, for me, I'm a practitioner of the shamanic path. The first question, sorry, did you have?
No, I'm just trying to figure out. It's almost like I am not a certified doctor, even though I can administer medicine to my loved ones. It does not make me like Dr. Kuan Yu. I'm not certified. Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, yeah, exactly. That's a good way of putting it. The first question, the skinwalker, I'm not quite sure how to answer that.
Okay. So I think that maybe that might be for a conspiracy theory podcast, not so much on esoteric. So, but I mean, with shamans and the skinwalkers, there was like some discussion that skinwalkers was actually part of the curse of a native shaman, or because of the native shaman land. Was that any truth to it at all, or can we just shelve that aside? Or we don't know enough about it?
I'm not familiar.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry. Yeah.
Sorry, Jillian. We'll table that for Friday Night Live instead. Okay. Yeah.
And
Yeah. Go ahead.
Eugene, if I may.
Yes, please.
Like just now you brought up spiritual DNA, and I love that idea. I just want to bring a little science or medical aspect to it. So you probably heard of epigenetics. Epigenetics is that we may carry the genes, but whether those genes, particular genes, whether you have susceptibility to diabetes, hypertension, it can be turned on and off based on your diet, your exercise. So although you may have a predisposition, it doesn't mean that it will definitely manifest. And in terms of spiritual DNA, how I look at it is that we all carry with us a seed that can bloom, and place this person into a different tradition, different space, probably different aspects of different seeds in you will bloom. But as I love to say, all roads lead to Rome, and whichever end of spirituality you start with, generally you end up at the place where it's about love, joy, harmony, peace, transcendence, connection, and that's how I see it. Yeah. I hope that helps in some way.
Well, since we're talking about medicine, right? I've got a question here, and this involves Kuan Yu as well. What are your thoughts, all three of you, or what are your thoughts about Western medication? Because I know mainly we talk about a lot about personal growth, a lot about in touch with nature and healing today. What are your thoughts about Western medication and the belief that modern medicine profits more from keeping us sick than healed? And is that why traditional healing, like the ones that you're doing, seems to be deliberately being given a bad name?
Anyone wants to go first?
Okay. Yeah, Roedy, go first. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Well, Western or modern medications are seen as the pharmaceutical industry. Right?
Okay.
It's a big business. Okay, we're talking about business perspective. Okay. Indonesia is a big market for that. You know, although we try to challenge it by jamu, if you heard about jamu. Also, the mentality about how we have to deal or depend on Western medications, pharmaceuticals are they trap us. You know, I'm trying to balance the perspective. Right? Do we need it? There are some needs that you need Panadols, you need paracetamols, so all kind of stuff. But when it comes to a threat, to the benefit of the health of the people, I think they have to realize that, especially people here, to honor more what we have.
Mm.
You know, health awareness. There's a saying, an apple a day to put the doctor away,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, and we got all kind of fruit that in the tropical countries there, they can boost your immune, right? So I would say it's more into the business missions.
Okay.
Uh, is I'm saying, I'm repeating a bit. Of course, there are need, that we need to consume, or we need to work with the pharmaceutical company.
Yeah.
But again, if you believe that you want to balance, the Western medications, combine what you believe in, your faith,
Yeah.
if you believe in your faith, which means you will honor the medication surrounding you before the era of Western medication.
Yeah.
You can
So the
always
nature has it all ready for us. Like you mentioned, an apple a day keeps the doctor away. It's not a vitamin C tablet keeps us healthy all day. So I think what I know Jeffrey can hear. So I'm just going to summarize what Roedy said. He mentioned that it's nature has it, the solutions around us. But at the same time, there will be times where you have to depend on the Western medication. But he does see it as pretty much a business, a corporation in a sense. That did I summarize you right, Roedy?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
You got it right.
Okay, Jeffrey or Kuan Yu, would you like to take this question about Western medication and traditional medicine? Yeah.
Jeffrey, would you like if you like to go to?
Yeah, this is a big topic, especially in the United States and in Western Europe. I've spent 22 years in Europe, 17 of which in France, which has an excellent healthcare system in the Western tradition. And, we do talk about big pharma for a reason. And you look at the amounts of money when pharmaceutical companies are found to be doing things illegally and are fined millions, hundreds of millions of dollars for wrongdoing. If they're able to continue to exist as a profitable company after paying such huge amounts of money, you have to ask that question, right? But I agree with Roedy's comment that nature does have and provides all that we need. The body heals itself. The Toltec in Mexico, their definition of healer is that we are all, each and every one of us is a natural healer. The body heals itself. However, there are times when we need Western medicine. Western medicine does have its place, and I have to be careful here. My partner is a Western trained doctor, and but she's also fed up. I don't mean to speak on her behalf, but I know she's fed up writing prescriptions, and there is this institutional pressure to write the prescriptions and give out certain drugs. I'm a disabled veteran. So I go to the Veterans Administration, the VA, for my health care here in San Diego, and they always want to push painkillers to numb the issue. And I'm always saying, I want to do alternative medicine, integrative medicine. Send me to the acupuncturist, send me to meditation, send me to yoga, something other than just taking a pill. And there are times when the pill is necessary. Yeah. KY, would you like to add to that?
Sure. And I thank you both for sharing your perspectives, and thank you, Eugene, for a great question. Something up front is that my perspective I'm going to share is going to be from Western medicine, my training, and also my training in Chinese medicine, particularly acupuncture. And both ends of the spectrum, I believe in medicine. I'm going to elaborate on that. And I also believe that our bodies are intelligent, and healing depends a lot about listening to our bodies and what it needs. And now, as part of what I do, I previously prescribed medicines. Now I prescribe techniques, I prescribe mindfulness, I prescribe individual work that my clients does to find the healing that they need. And if we look at a lot of Western medications, a great number of them come from natural herbs and plants. For example, the cinchona tree, where quinine is derived, which is the current use of antimalarial medication. So a lot of medications come from nature, and we could use the herb itself. Or what Western medicine does, it refines, it extracts the core active ingredient and puts it into a pill. And how it works is that and also honoring my Western training, I would say that the strength of Western medicine comes in things like infectious disease, antibiotics. It saves so many lives. Western medicine has its strength in emergency conditions. When you have a blood pressure of 190, you will depend on some form of Western medications to bring it down. And later you can do the alternative medicine, or you can do the other ways to manage stress to bring everything into equilibrium. And also Western medicine has its strengths in surgery. When you have an accident, you need surgery for life-saving purposes. And then I cycle back to medicine. How Western medicine works, or the pill works, is that to prove that pill works, you need to have evidence-based medicine. So to run an evidence-based medicines, you need research, and that research, you need a large pool of people. You need a large sum of money to run the research, because you need a double-blind study run over 6 months, 1 year, post-study observations for 5 years down the road. And this is where the pharmaceutical companies, they need the money to run the research to produce a medication. And then this is how the system runs. And that's why the money is involved, because this is the ecosystem it exists in. Of course, there would be how to say, black sheep in the pharmaceutical industry, and also even in the car industry, Volkswagen with its emissions scam. I think there's black sheep in every industry, not just medicine. And this is just to give a more, how to say, a wider perspective on the issue. And I would say that Western medicine has its merits, but traditional medicine has its own merits. And to the consumer, to the individual, it's like understanding what your body needs, understanding when is a medication needed, and having that guidance to be able to contemplate and judge and to balance. I think that's the wisdom that's needed.
All right, thank you. I'm quite mindful of the time, because I know Roedy needs to run off for a wedding ceremony. He's a guest speaker there. I've got a couple more questions. Do we have maybe 5-10 more minutes, or do we?
Yeah, I'm okay with 5-10 minutes.
Okay.
So, can I comment this
Yeah,
1 minute?
go ahead.
Well, I think everything boils down to the honest industry. So you can abuse the traditional medicine if you don't really honest in selling it, in producing it. You don't put the right package, or not to educate them, and vice versa. So we cannot really put down about some Western medications, because some demands, there is some value to a certain extent. But I know the judgment still that pharmaceutical company are very brutal in doing their business. Doctors are compelled to release some prescription because they were approached, by the company, or they can go to the Indonesian doctor associations that look, if you don't do this, we won't support your organization. Things that happens. So to me, if you balance everything, if as a humans, we have values of being honest. You want to share something beneficial to the health of the people. So we can learn a lot. That health is, being healthy is everything. I have an interesting quote from who's the founder of Apple?
Steve Jobs.
Steve Jobs.
Yeah.
If I can trade my wealth with your health, I would do it right away.
All right.
So I'm sure he'd try. Every single process of recovery. But again, educating self-awareness to yourself about being healthy. Sharing with your children at school or family. So we know what to do, what to choose. How to balance everything.
Right, that's right. And for the big pharma companies listening in, well, don't cancel us because we've been quite neutral in our statement. We didn't say all of you are evil. We just said some of you are evil. And Dr. Yong, we have a question from Sean Chong, just a quick one, because I've spoken with you about this before many times, so I kind of know where you stand on this. But the audience wants to know: do you receive any judgment from your colleagues or friends on your spiritual interest, since it's not scientific?
Well, I could spend 2 hours on that. So let me think how to answer that succinctly.
Yeah.
I think what I believe is that I perceive the judgment, whether the judgment is truly there or not. In my own little world, I perceive it that is, because I feel the need to defend my stand. I feel the need to explain what I'm doing, although there might be none. But I think in the process of explaining, what it does, it helps people probably bridge the gap. It's like, oh, why is he doing this? And how is this of benefit to the people? And how I see it is that the COVID is a good magnifying glass that magnifies what's actually happening in the hearts and the minds of so many people elsewhere. It was probably hidden under the carpet, the low-level stress, low-level anxiety, worry. But COVID, with its isolation, everything brings everything wide into open. And beyond medicine, people need soul healing medicine. People need techniques to calm their minds. People need to reach emotional equilibrium. And what I do and what I learn on my spiritual journey addresses that aspect of things beyond medicine. And I believe that one category of people, I call it suffering, are people with physical illness or psychiatric illness. And there's this category of surviving, people who, they don't have a established diagnosis, but then they're not happy in their lives. They feel lost. They run the hamster wheel and they don't know where
so many people out there like that.
And that's where I feel I find a lot of meaning in that work that I do, helping this group of people. And if that explains what I do, Sean, and why I do it. Yeah.
Okay, one last question to wrap up this discussion. I know probably a lot of you have more questions. I know we have a whole list of questions from Kuan Yu, but we could perhaps post that post-show and maybe put that as an additional content later on. Just one last question to wrap it up, because in Asia, there is a lot of there's a very deep spiritual belief. We allude many things to the ghost, ancestral spirit, the spirits of the dead, wandering ghosts, hell gods, hell spirits. So it's predominantly a ghost. When we say spirit world, we think of it as ghost. How do each of you, both Roedy as well as Jeffrey, relate your practices with the idea of a ghost? Or is that even something totally not within your culture at all? Jeffrey, or who wants to go first? Jeffrey, Roedy?
Go ahead, Jeffrey.
Okay, Jeffrey. Roedy voted you to go first.
So for 14 years, I worked for the American Battle Monuments Commission in Europe and in the Philippines. And I was taking care of American war dead from World War I, World War II. And I was the local manager of host nation employees taking care of these grounds. These are battlefields where a lot of casualties and a lot of death. So just prior to going to Egypt a month ago, I did a weekend of shamanic drumming with a group of 11 people. And I asked the shaman facilitator, I said, I feel this weight that's just dragging me down. And he acknowledged, speaking to me about my past, he said, what we need to do is psychopomp. Psychopomp is shamanic journey to help the dead, or ghosts, if you will. The spirits of these war dead were clinging to my life force. And so I laid on the ground, and 5 women and 5 men drummed all around me. And they worked their psychopomp technology to escort these spirits to the next world. And I have regained my energy and my vitality after doing this work. So yes, it is a part of the belief system, and it is part of the shamanic practice. And I would just like to add since we're wrapping this up, I know that in Asian culture, it's very common to have an altar in the house and to burn some incense and to recognize the ancestors.
Yep.
And that's also an important way to acknowledge the spirits around us, including the ghosts. Yes. So thank you.
Right. Roedy, over to you, sir.
Yeah, okay, thank you, sir. Well, knowing Indonesia as an archipelago, people call it the Ring of Fire, mystical islands. So that kind of spirits are around anywhere you go, from Sumatra to Papua, so to Borneo. Well, if you hear the headhunter, right? So and then it depends how you would perceive and deal with it. Some people still practice. One of the member in co-founder of my organization, he's hired by people if we want to buy a brand new house, let's say, because it has an aura that need to be clean up, and then adjusting, balancing, the aura, the spirit. We see the unseen things. People still believe in that. We just have to make friends with them. If we have to remove them because they not belong to the space that we are in, so we ask them to go to different portal. So it can be proven scientifically. If we have a friend, he's a physicist, so they can detect it. We're not talking about Ghostbuster here, right? But we're talking about the scientific approach to technology. They can detect, some movements of the unseen thing. So it is still around here. Many of them, if you, I'll just share you the book of Ring of Fire. They would discover a lot about things that we have in South Asia, still around. Some politicians still believe using some kind of the stuff, as their guardian. So to answer that question, so it depends. People can say it's a good spirit, white spirit, black spirit. So, but again, until today, if you have a new home, usually you have some sort of like ceremonial prayers that make sure that the unseen that occupied that area, or the geographical area are there.
So based on our practices, which leads to our belief and our understanding that spirits and what we do, we are aligned. It's not there's no discussion of no, they don't exist and all that. It's ever present, if not in form, at least in energy, right? Over to you, Kuan Yu. Just passing back the mic to you.
Thank you, Eugene. And for Jeffrey, Eugene runs Supernatural Confessions for the past 10 years, which is a series of collections of people sharing about their paranormal experiences. And there's no judgment, it's what they experience, this lived experience. And in Asia, this is a common theme about spirits and ghosts. And I think that's where the question is coming from. And wrapping up the session today, dear audience, if you love what you've seen and heard today, please contribute to a Lawkeeper Circle. There is a way to become a member where we keep you updated on events such as this. Eugene will be sharing.
It's up there. It's pinned up there already. Go and check it out on the comment section. It's pinned up there.
Yeah, comments on YouTube. And if you'd like to donate today, there's also a link where you can do that. Number 3 is, I thank our beautiful panel of speakers today who shared their wisdom, insight, and experiences with us. It has been enriching to be part of this group and to absorb by osmosis whatever you have shared today. And I hope the audience have benefited. And in the feedback form, please let us know what you liked today, what you didn't like, what you like for us to showcase in the future. And we'd like to hear from you, and so we can respond to you and serve you better next round. And with that, back to you, Eugene.
All right, so just want to once again thank you, Jeffrey, thank you, Roedy, for being part of this. We'll definitely catch up with you guys again, and we'll see you. I'd love to come over and see you guys soon. I would like to go. I know I'm going to visit Roedy soon. Jeffrey, you're a bit more expensive to reach, but I definitely want to make that time to head over to see you. Okay, thank you, gentlemen. All right, back to just us, Kuan Yu. We have very good speakers today that you have curated for us. Shall we just do a bit of a debrief and conclude what the entire session today before we say goodbye?
Yeah. If I may, I love talking about the thread that weaves through each and every one of us. And if I may attempt at a summary, is that all of us come from lineages. We come from our parents, grandfathers, and all of us come from a certain lineage, whether it's Chinese, American, Indian, and with that lineage, there is accumulated wisdom of traditions, ceremonies, rituals that serve a purpose. And something as simple as a funeral rite. The funeral rite is actually not for the dead. It's actually for the living. It's a ritual for the living so that they can pass through this period of grief where everyone gets together and there's mourning, there's ceremony, and it becomes a platform where you get to process stuff and move on. And many of our traditions have ceremonies, rituals, and it behooves us to understand where that came from, the meaning, and how does it apply today. And that is actually part one of what a law keepers circle of which I, Roedy, and Stefan are part of. And that's our motive and our main trust is how do we preserve this ancient wisdom and in a way maintain its relevance in the current day and age, and also in a way benefit us all and to increase understanding and to increase our individual and collective well-being.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. KY. So, ladies and gentlemen, audience, you guys are still with us watching. Thank you so much for waking up so early to join us. I know I came back, and by the time I slept last night after day 2, I only barely had 2 hours of sleep, but I'm freaking energized. And later on this evening, if you have the time, it's Saturday, do join us from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. over at the Central Landing Library at Bras Basah, Basement 1, where John, myself, Wayne, Chongwu, and Salim as well, will be seated dissecting some of your favorite horror classics and to explain why is some horror scenes more scary than the others, and more importantly, why is the Asian Ring considered by many to be scarier than the Hollywood remake of The Ring, when it's story one for one. What gives, right? And if you want to see Kuan Yu more with us, 2025, I kind of nudged him and choked his time already. I said, hey, Kuan Yu, I think you and I should be doing this Strange World series. So this is the first of many. So ladies and gentlemen, please let us know if you like it. If an overwhelmingly response come from, no, we hate this show, then we're not running. But if you think it's something that you have benefited from, you learn from it, because I know I have. I've had my mind blown. And if you feel that same way, let us know in the comment. We would love to bring this back again, Kuan Yu and myself. Then eventually we can get guests from all over the world, like stuff that we had never heard before in our life, to share their experiences here. Okay, so any last words, Kuan Yu?
Yeah, thank you everyone for joining us today. I hope the session has been fun, entertaining, inspirational, and I hope that there's some practical things that you take home. But maybe one practice that I can prescribe today is that take moments of the day to quiet down, to sit with yourself. And also, if you have a practice of mindfulness, pause, think, and then be present with your thoughts, feelings, emotions. And that is actually a beginning of a journey of well-being, and you listen to your body, your emotions, and your thoughts, and that drives a lot of stress, anxiety, panic, worry away. Starting with that first step. The first step is always awareness. And if the audience are interested in exploring mindfulness, I'll be running a workshop the next week. Reach out to me through the forms or whatever, and I'll let you have more information on the workshop.
Right. Or you just call me at 945-94931. I'll be happy to link you guys up. I myself have attended the workshop before, so has my wife, and I know a few other of the community members, and I think we walk away benefiting from it greatly. Yeah, awareness is the key foundation. So many of you say, well, what's spiritual? You start with awareness first, please. Well, my parting message to you guys is don't say impossible, don't say cannot. Everything is a possibility once you expand your mind. All right, with that, thank you. And this is day 3, the final day of our Something Strange Festival. We'll see you guys next time. See y'all. Bye-bye.
See you. Bye-bye.
What did you find? You are listening to Supernatural Confessions.